Hey everybody, this is the show where we are incredibly inspired by the love and change that local nonprofits bring to their communities. And we believe that speakers and nonprofit professionals deserve the chance to share their stories, collaborate, and network with their communities and sector. So without further ado, you're listening to Nonprofit Connect, a podcast by Rogue Creatives hosted by me, Matt Barnes. Let's go.
Hello, and welcome back to the show. My name's Tiffany Poe.
What's happening right now? I don't understand what's happening right now. This is not how this goes ever.
Okay, go ahead. Do your thing.
Hi. Welcome to my show. This is Nonprofit Connect with Matt Barnes, because that's me.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I said it better.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question.
Okay. She has a question. We're jumping right in a bit.
Yeah, we're jumping
There's no formalities here. There's no like, hey, this is who we are and what we do. We're just jumping straight in. Tiff has a question. So
I do.
We're all going to put our lives on hold just a second for Tiff to ask her question. Let's go.
Okay, ready?
What's your question?
What house are you in Hogwarts?
Oh, yeah. I believe it's been a while.
Okay.
This is actually one of the questions on our random list of questions that I ask our guests.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's ever actually come up. I don't think it's ever actually been randomly chosen.
So I'm the first one to ask it.
It may be. You may be. I don't recall.
Special.
But I think, so the options are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, and
Ravenclaw.
Wow. Right. I'm a Hufflepuff.
No way.
Yeah, but I disagree with that. I think I'm a Gryffindor.
I feel like you're half and half.
Yeah.
Because I'm Hufflepuff, and I don't know if we're the same.
We are not the same.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like our personality is kind of the same.
Is it? Mm-hmm.
Like we're out there, we're fun. Everyone thinks we're funny, even though maybe we don't think we are.
My kids don't think I'm funny.
Really? I feel like your kids think I'm funny.
McCoy tells me often, Dad, your jokes are terrible. Dad, you're not funny at all. He says, Dad, that's the worst jokes in the entire world. And then I catch him laughing and I'll be like, see, you think I'm funny. And he'll be like, okay, you got that one. That one was funny, but nothing else is funny.
Yeah, your dad jokes, they're not
My
funny.
dad jokes are amazing.
No.
I've been practicing. I've been waiting so long in my life to be able to really unleash the dad jokes. And when I became a dad, the floodgates opened. It did. Yeah, there was no stopping it. And there still is no stopping it. Because
now I have to hear it every single day.
That's right. Almost every day on our Zoom chats for the whole team.
Dad joke.
Post a dad joke of the day.
And it's horrible.
They're fantastic. Anyway.
It's horrible.
Oh, come on.
Okay, come on. Introduce the show. And
did you see the one the other day?
No.
That we went to the zoo and I saw a baguette in a cage.
No.
And the sign said it was bred in captivity.
Oh my God.
There you go.
No.
That's so good.
No, you're the only one laughing.
Everyone's laughing. Our listeners right now, they had to pause.
They're laughing at you.
Because they were laughing so hard they had to pull over their cars.
No, they're laughing at you because that was horrible.
Not a chance.
It's horrible.
Joining us today here on the show. Smooth transition.
Yeah. That was good.
Priya Iyer is the founder and CEO of Our Roots, a nonprofit that is providing support to people living in poverty who have recently given birth to combat anxiety and depression.
Wow.
I really love talking to Priya. She's just great and has overcome a lot with the people that she's working with and really just helping underserved communities to get the support that they need. Because as you know, being a mom is not the easiest thing in the world. And the whole process of becoming a parent sometimes can be very challenging. Infertility and all of that. But then also afterwards, the support people need. And being a parent is a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
Shockingly, the support systems aren't always there.
Yeah.
Especially for underserved communities or for minorities, and Priya is really stepping up. And I've actually already connected her with our friends over at Uniquely Knitted, and Doug and Jesse, who are from Uniquely Knitted, are going to be guests on the podcast coming up too. But they work with people struggling with infertility as well. And it's such a rich area to provide support for because there's not a lot out there. And the work that Priya is doing is amazing. So I'm excited for everybody to hear what she has to share. And we'll be right back with her after these brief messages. Not messages, just message. Just a message from our sponsor. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, I'm here with Priya Iyer. I said that right? Priya Iyer?
Yes, you said it perfectly.
I asked you before, and then now I got it in my head like, oh shoot, am I going to screw this up? And it was the easy, obvious way that I thought it was. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Matt. So lovely to be here with you.
Yeah. So we always start off with 3 random questions to kind of break the ice. I got a list of about 100 questions, really random ones, and we randomly choose 3. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here they are. I haven't even looked at which ones they are today. What is your favorite animated TV show and why?
I feel like I should have a better answer for this because I have a 3-year-old and then almost 1-year-old. But I actually don't have a good answer at this point because I can't remember much of what happened for the past couple of years of my life. So I might have to pass on
kids
that.
always make it a blur, right? Have they found
Yes.
Bluey yet?
They have not. It's funny because I have actually tried to get that. Well, especially my 3-year-old, because the 1-year-old doesn't have much screen time.
Right. Yeah,
but for the 3-year-old, I've tried to get him to get into more adult TV shows or things that we used to watch back in the day. So we do more non-animated things, I would say.
Got it. Well, I will say, because I am an evangelist for Bluey, it's if you've seen Ted Lasso, it's like Ted Lasso for kids. It's just the best. And most of the people that work with me here that don't have kids are still now watching Bluey because it's just that good. It's amazing storytelling. It's incredible, and it's literally the best probably parenting training tool out there. Like, I point everybody toward it. It's really good. So, okay, there's one worth checking out. Let's go to the next question, which is, if you could only eat one cuisine for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Okay, this might be a cop-out answer, but Indian food. I love Indian food. And
Really?
I love yes. And I know I am Indian, but
are you from India or just that's your heritage?
I actually grew up in Kansas.
Okay.
Which is, I love the Ted Lasso reference because of that. But yeah, I grew up with my grandparents, and my grandma used to cook amazing Indian food for us. And so I tried to replicate just like, a tenth of that.
I traveled to India once on a scouting trip thing. I was there, and we went to dinner one night, and they brought out, a plate with just some little pieces of chicken on it, like little chicken wings. And I thought, I'm really hungry. It'd been a long day. I take a bite out of this thing. My mouth has never been more on fire than it was in that moment. It was. I think I spent an hour just if you've seen that web show Hot Wings. It was like that. It was nuts. I was not expecting that. They did not warn me for that. But I know it's not all Indian food is not all that way. But that one stuck with me. I mean, that was like 20 years ago. And every time somebody says Indian food, that's what pops in my head.
Yeah, there are some states in India that are really known for bringing on the heat in our food.
Yeah, yeah. All right, last one. If you could add any sport into the Olympics, what would it be?
Does speed reading count as a sport?
Sure, why not? Speed reading. Oh, that would be good. But we'd have to like test comprehension, right? Because you can't just pretend you're reading. Because otherwise you just go, oh, I'm done. Right? Then we got to find out, like, did you actually read it?
Exactly. Like, share the knowledge back. But I think that would be really cool.
There you go. Are you a big reader?
I'm a huge reader. I love to read.
Awesome. I have found that since children, it has been much more difficult for me to find time to read.
Yes. And you're always tired, which is why I feel like I just started trying to learn how to speed read. And that's why I mentioned that.
Oh, nice. I should learn that. Yeah. My wife the other day, she goes, I've slept well the last 3 nights, but I'm still exhausted. Is there going to be a day when I'm not tired? And I said, I don't think either of us are going to not be tired for probably the next 15 years. I think this is it. Like, our oldest ones are 6, our youngest is 1.5, and we have 5 total. And it's so we got a lot going on. And
wow. Okay, that's amazing. You're gonna have to give me tips after this. How are you alive?
Right. Yeah, no. It's 2 sets of twins. So they got built-in best friends. That really helps. They keep each other busy a lot. And then with the baby who's 1.5, they keep him busy a lot too. So, but there's a lot going on there. I don't know that restfulness is on the agenda for a while. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. You are the founder and CEO of Our Roots, and I'm just looking over your resume. I'm like, man, it's pretty impressive. Based on your resume, I was kind of expecting someone older, because you've done a lot. Tell me your origin story. Where'd you come from? How'd you get to where you are, and what are you doing today?
Yeah, thank you. I probably look younger than how old I actually am, but I'll take that for the time being. Um, so there are a couple of different kind of buckets of what landed me here. The first I would say is I grew up in Kansas, like I mentioned, beginning in an intergenerational household. So my parents, grandparents, all from India, landed there. We all grew up together and grew up there at a time where there weren't a lot of immigrants there, not a lot of Indian immigrants,
Yeah.
and faced some bullying and racism growing up. And so it really made me aware of what it felt like to be othered and shaped a lot of the work that I do today. The second piece is I have spent a lot of time as a public health scientist in maternal and child health. And so I got the chance to work all around the world, which was awesome, and go back to my ancestral state in India and work there. And I was really in awe at how well put together the public health infrastructure is in other countries and how much we can learn from that in the US, especially in our maternal and child health care systems.
Yeah.
And I, had all of that in my back pocket as I came back here, had two kids with my husband, and I experienced the problem that we're trying to solve in many ways myself.
Yeah.
So I experienced panic attacks when I started trying for my son. And it was terrifying. And, in my own immigrant household, we don't talk about mental health.
Right.
And I realized, that's so true in many other households as well, many communities of color, even beyond. And it just really opened my eyes because I started talking to other people and other women of color in particular. And so many of them were like, oh, yeah, the same thing happened to me. And I was like, what? This is happening to so many people around me and no one's talking about it. How is this even possible? And the problem goes so deep. And so that's kind of what led me to this work.
Wow. That's awesome. Explain what Our Roots does and what your goals are.
Yeah. So what we do in a nutshell is we connect pregnant and postpartum communities of color who are low income to peer support coaches to prevent anxiety and depression. And we do all of that virtually on our platform. And our goal is to really be able to offer this type of culturally reverent care to every mama birthing parent across the US
Yeah.
as they're going through this really kind of vulnerable and transformative time in their life, if
Wow.
they want it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is incredible, because having gone through what we went through to get our kids, we went through fertility treatment and IVF and all of that. And as a middle-aged white guy who struggles with very little in this country, it still was challenging, and it's still a lot of psychologically there's so much going on, and people just don't understand. So I can't even imagine when you add to that there's such a stigma to even talk about a lot of those issues, and on top of any cultural things on top of that, and all of that. So it's one of those things that as we we're going through, I'm like, man, there needs to be more resources for this needs to be something that people can learn more about, because it's so common, and yet there's kind of a stigma about addressing these issues and talking about them. And so anyway, I'm so happy to hear of someone like you out there doing this kind of work. And I in a place that probably doesn't have a lot of that, I would imagine.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that because I feel like a lot of people feel like this is a really niche issue, but the reality is that it's not, in
No,
that it touches all of us. Like it touches um, birthing parents, whether they're men or women,
absolutely.
or identify as something else. It affects each of us who has a mother,
Yeah,
which is all of us, right?
right.
And so it actually impacts generations, and research shows that it impacts like up to 3 generations, if not more,
Yeah.
which is pretty jarring. And so I think we really should be thinking about it as an issue that is very prevalent, not a niche issue.
And what I something else that I really appreciate just off the bat, just maybe this is just first impression things is, you and I were talking a little bit before we started recording about part of the intention I had with this podcast of sort of making it more conversational and approachable and that type of thing. And you are instantly a person who exudes joy and approachability, and that is also something that I think when this topic is brought up is missing. And it makes it so kind of hush hush and so like, no, we have to be so serious about this. And it is a serious topic, but you can still bring the human perspective to it. And I think people try to leave that out in some ways. And it ends up doing the opposite of what you would want to do, which is make it something we can talk about and make it something conversational, or, that is more approachable for people.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I love that because it's something I think about. Sometimes I feel like I get too heavy myself. And so one of the things that I try to do is, as we're working with peer coaches who are offering the support, really make sure that we're bringing on people that have like different personalities and can even infuse humor into this.
Yeah.
Because like, think about it. Think about how many poopy diapers you've changed and how much of
Right.
your life you spent talking about things like you would never talk about otherwise.
Oh
Like there's
man.
funny, like really hilarious things about being a parent. And
Absolutely.
our birthing parents and the communities we work with love that. And so like they bring humor into this too. So it's not just about like these really heavy moments, but it's like having all of it and being honest about all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the full spectrum of all of it, and if we don't present that, then it's more alienating for people because then they're sort of othered. If they're put into that category instead of no, this is just something that people deal with and people go through. It is, and it's part of life, and let's help people and support them through that because we all need it. What have been some of the biggest challenges for you as well? First of all, how long have you been doing this?
Yeah, so we officially started piloting in May 2022 with
Okay,
our first health clinic partner. And that's always a tricky question because I also spent a long time before that talking to people and trying
sure.
to pilot and test it in different ways as well.
Okay. And what have been the biggest challenges for you as you've sort of gotten this off the ground and started connecting it with people?
Yeah. So initially, I would say convincing funders that this was necessary and getting the funding. Now, I would say the problem has shifted, which is nice and also hard, but
Sure.
it's also around convincing people that we often should not be the ones deciding for pregnant and postpartum people what they should do with their
Right.
bodies or like
Right.
what they have to opt into. And it's convincing our partners, health clinics, other people that just offering the service and educating folks and then allowing them to opt in
Yeah.
is okay because our entire system is not really designed to have that kind of optionality right now.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It is funny when so many nonprofits in different areas go to offer a service or solve a problem. A lot of times people are like, well, then this is the way you have to do it. Or, and we were talking even just on the concept of like ethical storytelling recently. And one of the organizations I was talking to said, oh yeah, we really will the people, our clients or whatever that when we're working with them on, they're going to present somewhere, they're going to be in a video or whatever. We really coach them and work that through with them of, this is you don't have to present yourself this way. This is it's we don't want you to be the victim and that and which is great. But then, they said, but we had one get up and in front of a crowd, and then she kind of freaked out a little bit and decided that she wanted to tell the more traumatic story. And we were like, "Oh, we failed." And I'm like, "Well, it's a tough balance because it's still her choice how she wants to present herself." And really ethically, doing this would be saying, yeah, we can help give her that point of view, but in the end, it's her choice to how she wants to represent her story. And it's the same thing here where, some people may choose to step into this, some people may not. Some people may want parts of it and other parts and not so much. And it makes it a little trickier, but it's also that's part of life. That's part of how we do this stuff, and it's not always so clean cut.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I think that's a good analogy because a lot of times I understand because our healthcare workers are working in like really complicated situations and the federally qualified health centers that we partner with or the Medicaid plans, they're complex. Our healthcare
Yeah,
system is just like really complicated, right?
absolutely.
And so the building of partnerships is not with these massive organizations, but with people who often really care about the communities that we're working with. And at the same time, I think it's okay to give people have people have the option to have doula care, some peer support, to have their OBGYN, to have those different options because people want different things or they want to use them in conjunction, and that's okay. And we don't need to control that.
Exactly. Exactly. That's such a great open-handed approach, open-fisted approach to say, here's what we have, we want to be part of the solution and be what you need us to be. And I think a lot of times the temptation is to try and control it a little bit more. When you talked about, starting up and trying to convince people that this was worth funding, that this was worth investing in, how did you overcome that? What was, on this in particular, there's probably, and in most nonprofit situations, this is true. There's an education curve, right? Like bringing people into the story, helping them understand that there is a need in the first place, what that is. This one has a lot of nuance to it. It also has components of other areas as far as, psychological and racial, diversity and all of the things. So I can imagine that it's even probably more, a steeper education curve there. How did you overcome that? How did you get people to come on board? I'm glad that it seems like that has you've kind of hit that, but what did that look like at the time?
Yeah. So I'll start with where we were getting pushback, which
Yeah.
was, I mean, it was a bunch of different things, as you said,
Yeah.
but a couple of the areas we were getting pushback around were one, that the communities that we're working with are not going to sign on to a virtual platform. We were getting pushback around why do you need to center the communities that we're working with? Why can't you just say this is for everyone? And the service is for everyone, but we were saying we're going to start with these communities and design a product that starts with them and centers them because that is so often not true. So, like, those were a couple of the things that we were getting pushback around. And honestly, the way that we overcame it was I ended up talking to more than 100 potential partners and found one amazing federally qualified health center in the East Bay that's nearby to where I live. And there is a pioneering director there who's like, I really believe in this. And in a few weeks was like, we need this service. We have massive wait lists for therapy and our folks need this. So like, how do we get you in? And then she convinced the caseworkers, the social workers, the OBGYNs, other people within the clinic that they should refer folks to us. And so it was finding that person that was already there, that was
Yeah.
like with us, and then getting both like the quantitative data to go back to funders and say, hey, look, people are really engaging with this. And then also the stories, like having people share their story in the way that felt right to them
Sure.
in terms of how this was transformative for them.
Nice. I love that. That's so yeah. I mean, I think it sounds like, being able to find someone who already had credibility in that area, who supported you was a big piece of that. And that is, I meet a lot with startup nonprofits, executive directors, and helping them kind of do some strategy and figure out how do we grow this and how do we get some attention on it. And that is always one that if you can do it, I mean, if you can find somebody who has that credibility and people listen to and bring them in, then, that's always a huge win. What other challenges? I mean, you had said you were from Kansas, and I was assuming that that's where you still are, but I'm thinking that that's not true now. Where are you at?
No, I'm in Oakland now.
Oakland. Okay, yeah. You said that you talked about the Bay, and I'm like, wait a minute. See what happens.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
No, not your problem. That's me assuming. That's what happens when you assume, right? Okay. What I'm just trying to think if that reframes anything for me. But yeah, what have been some of the other challenges as you started to grow this? Do your programs look a lot different today than they did when you first started, even 2 years ago?
Yeah, they definitely do. So when we started, we thought we needed to use like this very structured curriculum because we were like, we're going into health clinics. They're more traditional spaces. They want to see something that's like very evidence-based and scientific, right? So we started with the structured curriculum that had been proven out and all of this stuff. And when we started utilizing it, there were useful things from it for sure. And then our communities were telling us that they were experiencing other things and there was no curriculum to go back to like support them around that. So for example, people were coming to us and saying, we've gone into these clinics and people have told us that we're fat. They've told us like all of these other racially charged things. There is no like handbook for that in the curriculum that we were looking at. So
Right.
we had to really think about how do we build our own resources to support people in advocating for themselves, because there are other structures and ways that we are really trying to shift systemic racism. And that is a slow process. So the reality is that people are still facing this day to day. So how do we support them in the process? And so we really shifted our approach and thought more about how do we support our peer coaches now in building the skills that they need. And then how do we build out our own resource database and support people where they're at? So they drive the sessions, they set their goals with the peer coach, and the peer coach like moves with them and they have the opportunity to lead rather than us being like, this is what we're going to walk through in all of your check-ins. So that was like one example.
Yeah. What prepared you for that? Because I think, one of the things that I encounter a lot with smaller nonprofits, even ones that have been around for a little while, is and maybe even for-profits for that matter, is sort of sticking their flag in the ground of this is what we do, this is how we do it, and not having the flexibility to change, to adapt as they learn, as they grow. And what prepared you for that? Is that just, you think that's just part of your personality, or is that things you've learned other places that you're applying here? And it's such a challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's like built personality. Maybe I've moved a lot since I lived in Kansas.
Yeah.
Probably every couple of years. And I think that's similar to a lot of people in my generation.
Yeah.
And so each time you move, you kind of like build and shift and rethink the things around you. Part of it's maybe my personality where I seek that out intentionally, because I like to say, okay, I'm going to put the stake in the ground, but I'm also like very willing to be challenged and want to be able to redo it so that I can get better and better at the service that we're building.
Yeah.
And like from a values standpoint, that just felt really important to me, because there's so many times where when we're building services or products for our communities where it feels like we're not offering them the best service possible. We're just offering them something. And I feel like they've often become so used to that. And I think that's terrible. I think that we should be designing the service to be like the very best service possible and really be able to offer people the emotional support that they need.
Why do you think that people get so held back by that? Why do you think people struggle with that so much?
I think that I can speak to being a nonprofit and a tech nonprofit in particular. Yeah. I think it's challenging because you are accountable to many different people, not just the communities you're working with, but you're accountable to several funders, not one funder, right?
Right.
You often have to piece together your funding through several individual investors, foundations, etc. And some of them may have strong opinions, others may not. But if you're working with more opinionated people, you sometimes have to convince all of those different people
Yep.
that your approach or your new approach is like a good approach. And that
Yeah.
can be really challenging.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's very real reasons why it's a struggle.
Yeah. And I mean, in general, I think also people struggle with change. They don't always love change. And so, you get comfortable in doing what you're doing as well. I would guess that you're a person who probably is driven by finding out what, solving problems and finding out what's working and adjusting and tweaking on that. One of the biggest, not to get too into sort of organizational leadership theory, but it's part of my background and I think a lot of people accidentally or not define their organization with their what instead of their why, and so they get the details get put in concrete instead of just the mission. And when the mission's just put in concrete, then those details can all change as you adapt and grow, as long as you're still driven by that mission, and change isn't such a big deal. But when you really root yourself in those details, and then culture changes and you got to change them, it's a lot more painful and harder to bring people along with. But it's a problem that I think a lot of specifically smaller startup nonprofits deal with as they're trying to figure out, how do we do these things? How do we grow and solve these problems? And a lot of times they're tackling a smaller issue in the beginning, something very specific, and then as they want to grow, they don't know how to let go of that one way of doing things. But I love what you're doing. What is there anything else specific that you would want other nonprofit leaders to know about your experience? Because you've officially only started this about 2 years ago, and it's impressive to me
Yeah.
that you've come that far in 2 years. Most nonprofits take a little bit longer to get on their feet than that. What's the secret? I mean, you said you did some research and prep ahead of time, but what's the tip you would give to somebody who's starting something up?
I don't have like a secret sauce per se, but there are there is one thing that I would say that kind of encompasses several things, which is the partnerships that we've built, right?
Yeah,
So, for example, we have an amazing board. We have two people on our board, but the power of two people who really believe in what you're doing, an early board that will invest in the organization and you as a leader in many, many different ways and are willing to just jump in, that's really powerful. It's like invaluable. And then I would also say when I use the term partnerships, I use it kind of broadly because it's also in terms of our communities. Like I make sure to continue doing peer support coaching myself so that I really understand what's happening in our communities. Or I'll go in and meet the mamas and the birthing parents we're working with in person. So even though we're a tech nonprofit, I still try to maintain that connection both virtually and in person, at least now that we're small. And I feel like we can continue to do that as we grow. And
yeah,
that's been really helpful because, like, tied back to what you were saying before, I think one of the fears of change is that you don't want to harm the communities that you're working with.
yeah,
And like one way to know that is to be in front of them, be in relationship with them, be talking to them,
yeah,
and know exactly kind of what's happening with the changes that you're making so that
yeah.
you can be very responsive. So yeah, those
Let me
are
ask you.
a few of the
Let me ask you this one more thing too. I saw it, and then you said it earlier, and now I don't know why I was having trouble putting these together, but because it's what you do is so about relationships. It's so relational and it's so personal. It's hard for me to think of you as a tech nonprofit, but that's such a part of it too. How has it, like, marrying sort of those two things, was that challenging? I mean, aside from convincing, you said in the beginning, convincing some people that people would come online for these things, but and do it virtually. But has that been accepted? Has that been are there some unique challenges in that, or is it just kind of going like, all right, it's just another avenue to bring relational therapy or relational not therapy, but work through.
yeah, that it's a very good question. So there are a couple of things. One is that the reason we're a tech nonprofit is because that's what the folks in our community asked for. They're like, we have so many appointments, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you know this. You have so many appointments when you go through the process of being pregnant and postpartum, and so many things to deal with, and work, and all of these other barriers, transportation. So they're like, I don't want to go to another thing in person. If I can find, a virtual relationship and build that relationship on my smartphone.
Yeah.
So great. We're like, cool, we can make that happen. So people have their smartphones and feel super comfortable about it, but it was this idea that other people decided for them that, hey, you need to be in person. And so we found that worked really well. And the second piece of it that like really helps us is that as we want to grow our impact, there are very human elements that our peer coaches need to do. And there are other elements that we can leave to the technology, right? And being able to separate that out allows us to grow the impact that we're having.
It's awesome. That's really great. I think, it's so funny as you were saying that, I was thinking about how, even for myself, during COVID, I, switched to therapy online, with my therapist, and she's 10 minutes from me, and I always thought, oh, when we start opening up again, I'll go back. I have not seen her in person in 4 years, because it's just like, wow, this is so much more convenient. I can, be in my office and doing work, and then switch over, do an appointment, go back. And, there's certain things that I like having the option now of, of either or, but in meetings and different things. But yeah, it really, there's a flexibility now that the world has accepted online as an opportunity to connect in different ways. And some of the things, it's like, yeah, you go back to in person, and other things, like, that doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So I love that you guys have embraced that. And it's just, I think the distinction of being a tech nonprofit was where I was like, man, I didn't even really think of it that way. But really, I mean, yeah, you have to create the infrastructure to be able to support those services. So that's really cool. It's very cool. I think it's gonna change a lot of the way nonprofits do, and I think it's already changing the way a lot of nonprofits do things, but I think that's gonna even keep coming more and more with all the new advances and all of that, and some of that's scary and some of it's exciting, and we'll see where it all goes, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it also makes me think of one last thing, which is
Yeah,
that we're seeing um, a lot of hospitals or healthcare services shut down in rural areas that are already underserved. And so when we think of our work and being able to expand across the US, like I know even in California, we've talked to potential partners that are in very rural areas where there aren't a lot of people of color or not a lot of folks who might be able to speak the language of the pregnant or postpartum person that's coming into the clinic. And so being a tech nonprofit is exciting in that way, because then we can reach folks with somebody who has shared lived experiences with them, and they don't actually have to physically be in that location.
yeah, that's great. That's so great. All right, a few questions as we wrap up. Who in the world of nonprofits inspires you?
Ooh, there are so many people. One person who I really love is Shawan Jackson of Vocal Justice. I don't know if you've heard of them before, but they're a wonderful organization. You should check them out.
Okay. All right. I will. Absolutely. And what is the thing in your job that brings you the most joy?
It's definitely just being able to connect with our mamas and our birthing parents and then watch their confidence and belief in themselves transform.
I love it. So good. Well, Priya, it's been so great talking to you. You are very you just radiate positivity, and I'm so excited that you are doing the work that you're doing, because we need more people like you out there in that field in particular, bringing positivity and giving opportunities for people to feel seen and heard. And so it's amazing. I'm so happy. How can people connect with you, with your with our roots? Where can they find more information?
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. You're making me blush. So you can learn more about our work by checking out our website, which is www.ourroots.community. And you can reach out to me directly at PRIYA at ourroots.community. I'm happy to chat with anybody who has questions or thoughts.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been awesome. And best of luck in everything that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, there you have it. This episode of Nonprofit Connect with Matt Barnes, brought to you by Rogue Creatives, is over. It's done. Finished. What are you going to do with the rest of your day? You're going to take the dog for a walk, maybe have some dinner. Before you do any of those things, could you do us a massive favor and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Music or Spotify or wherever else you listen to us? Obviously, you don't have to, but, it'd be very, very appreciated. Oh, and if you want to hear more from us, visit our website at npconnect.roguecreatives.com. That's npconnect, like Nonprofit Connect, .roguecreatives.com. We'll see you soon. Nonprofit Connect with Matt Barnes is hosted and executive produced by me, Matt Barnes, with an assist by my chaos coordinator, Tiffany Pope. Production is by our amazing friends over at Fame, the B2B podcast agency, along with Belinda Carter-Thompson and the team here at Rogue Creatives. Production lead is Luke Audi at Fame. Writing is by Sam Hollis at Fame and Matt Barnes and Taylor Bolanos from Rogue Creatives. Nemanja Koljaja of Fame is our audio editor, and Arslan Yakub from Fame is our video editor. Creative direction is by Corey Hill of Rogue. Our artwork is designed by Hopo Kelly and Joshua Marino at Rogue, and Ian Salas of Fame. Theme music is composed and performed by Jared Atherton of Chapters. Luke Audi of Fame does our booking and our guest relations. Huge thanks to our amazing guest for joining us for this episode, and to all of you incredible listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, and I don't know why you wouldn't have, don't forget to help us spread some good by giving us a good review. Preferably, 5 stars with lots of words saying how amazing we are on whatever platform you're listening on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is. Also, tell your friends and subscribe so we can come straight into your potholes each and every time we have a new episode. For more information about Nonprofit Connect or to join us at a live event here in Orange County, California, visit our website, npconnect.roguecreatives.com. We'll catch you next time. This has been a Rogue Creatives production.